Have you ever been in the middle of checking in a guest into your hotel? You ask them if you can take a pre-authorization and all they give you is a look of confusion? Or maybe you are checking out a guest and you start to take the payment and the guest makes a comment saying they already paid a check-in when you know full well it was only a pre-authorization. And when you've tried and tried to explain to your guest how the pre-authorization works and they still don't get it? Well, my name is Roberto and I am here to provide you with guides to simplify processes, to support your learning and to give you a head start in front office. In today's video, I'm going to help you understand how pre-authorization works with payment cards and how you can best communicate this with your guests. Before we move on to how it all works, here are some examples of how the content in this video may be useful to you. You will find that guests who stay in your hotel a lot will know exactly how the pre-authorization process works. You'll even get corporate guests who will be using their company credit card who won't even question the pre-authorization process because they've done it so many times in the past. But some guests who have never experienced a pre-authorization before will not have a clue how it works. You'll say the phrase, "I'm going to take a pre-authorization on your card," and you'll immediately see the confusion on their faces. Later on in the video, I will guide you through the process of pre-authorization and how you'll be able to best explain this to your guests. Similarly, during checkout, when you need to take the payment from the guest, which is also known as completing or capturing, which will be very clear later on in the video, it is highly likely that your guest will say, "But I already paid during check-in," or something similar to that. And especially if a guest uses a debit card, they will probably even say to you, "I can show you on my online statement that the money has come out of my account," as if it was a sale transaction. Now I know deep down in your head you just want to say to the guest, "No, it hasn't, you need to pay now," which, by the way, don't ever say that to a guest, ever. But again, I'm going to guide you through how you would explain to the guest exactly what happened and why it does show on their online statement that money has come out of their account when in fact it hasn't. And lastly, you will find that if you didn't explain the pre-authorization process properly to your guests, they will go home and then in a couple of days later, they will probably see 2 transactions on their bank account. And yes, they will email you about it, or they might even write an online review to say what has happened and how the hotel has charged them twice, and they will demand a refund. Well, hopefully with what you learn in this video, you can prevent these types of emails coming through and also avoid unnecessary reviews. Remember, you in front office are going to be the last impression to your guests, so let it be a positive one and not one that is confusion over a pre-authorization process. So how does it all work? First of all, we need to define what a pre-authorization actually is. A pre-authorization is a held amount of money that doesn't belong to the guest and it doesn't belong to the hotel. Once a pre-authorization is done, the guest will no longer have access to those funds that was pre-authorized, and also it hasn't moved to the hotel's bank account yet either. The best way to visualize it once a guest does a pre-authorization is that that money that is held belongs in the clouds. Yes, the clouds. Bear with me, it will make sense. But before we move on to talk about clouds and how it all works, we do need to set some ground rules in order to help understand the process of pre-authorization. So let's say we have an imaginary hotel, and if the guest reservation is POA, then we have to take a pre-authorization of the total amount of the reservation plus £50 per night to cover any extras or incidentals. Now, if you don't know what POA means, I'm going to link for you right now the video for my front office codes, which will help you understand what and how a reservation is going to be paid for. Also, if the guest reservation is prepaid, or if the guest reservation is POE, then only £50 per night will need to be pre-authorized for extras and incidentals. And lastly, our hotel is selling rooms at £100 per night every single day, and that includes bed and breakfast. Right, so back to the clouds. So in our imaginary hotel, we have a guest arriving. Their reservation is POA and they are staying for one night. So the reservation is £100 plus £50 for the extras and incidentals, meaning the total we are going to pre-authorize is £150. Now when we take the pre-authorization, it provides us with an authorization code. Let's say the code on this pre-authorization is 1234. This code is now attached to the pre-authorization. There'll be more about this later. Now remember when I said that once a guest does a pre-authorization, it doesn't belong to the guest or the hotel, it now belongs to the cloud? Well, this actually is a thing. It might not be called a cloud, but the theory is the same. So the pre-authorization will belong to the cloud until it knows what to do next. So the guest has now stayed overnight and it is now the next day and the guest is ready to check out. Having a look at the guest's invoice, it shows that they need to pay their bed and breakfast at £100 and they had drinks last night in the bar, which was charged to their room at £35. So the total that the guest needs to pay is £135. And now it is time to take the payment. In pre-authorization language, the payment part is called completion or capture. So we are in effect completing or capturing the pre-authorization. The hotel is now going to take that money that is being held by the cloud. Now it's only going to take the £135 out of the total of the £150. The way that this is done is that when the completion or capture is processed, it will ask for the authorization code. This is the permission for the funds to leave the cloud and to go into the hotel's bank account. So in effect, this explains how the pre-authorization and the completion or capture process works. But what happens if the guest's bill goes over the pre-authorized amount? Let's say, for example, that our guest had dinner as well as their drinks, and their dinner came to £50. So now the total on their bill will be £100 for bed and breakfast, £50 for their dinner, and £35 for their drinks. So the total now being £185. If you have a well-organised front office team, then your night team will notice that the guest's bill has gone over the pre-authorized amount, and what they would do is that they would top it up. So they would do another pre-authorization so that we know that we've got enough money to cover the entire of the guest's bill. Now when you do a pre-authorization top-up, you actually need to select the top-up function on the pre-authorization because it will then give you the option to enter a code. So in our example, we need to top up by £35. By using the same authorization code, you are instructing the cloud to add that £35 to the already £150 that is in the cloud. This now changes the guest's total amount of pre-authorization from £150 to £185. Now during checkout, when you need to do the capture or the completion, you have enough money pre-authorized in the cloud to take and put it in your hotel's bank account. Just a quick note that not all night teams do pre-authorization top-ups. Perhaps in your hotel, your guest will actually need to exceed a certain amount of money before the night team will need to do a pre-authorization top-up. If the guest's bill goes over by just a couple of pounds, personally, I wouldn't even bother. I would just wait until the next day. However, if it is a large amount of money, then I would strongly recommend that you do make a pre-authorization top-up just to make sure that there is enough money in the guest's account to prevent them from just walking away from your hotel and you not having the full payment of their bill. The best thing to do would just be to ask your head of department or your accounts team what your hotel considers your limits to be. So let's say that you had a guest who had a wild night in your bar and they managed to rack up their bill to £150. You already have a pre-authorization of £50 for any extras or incidentals, so now they have gone over this £50 by £100. Now if you tried to do a pre-authorization top-up of £100 and it declined, it means that the guest doesn't have enough money in their account for you to do that. So then you are totally reliant on that guest coming to reception to pay for their bill when they check out. Now 99% of these people will come to reception and they will pay for their bill, but you never know. You might get some people who won't and they will just walk out of your hotel. Now, if this guest does decide to walk away from the hotel, you are able to capture or complete the £50 that you pre-authorized at check-in, but the other £100, well, that's a different conversation that you're going to have with your head of department or with the accounts team. A good bar team will double check with reception just to see how much has been pre-authorized, to see what is actually covered in this guest's account. And if the bar team can see that the guest is going to continuously drink, they would either cut them off or ask for an alternative means of payment. In the future, I shall be releasing another video that will show how to best handle these situations, so subscribe to my channel if you want to be notified of when that video will come out, or alternatively, please drop me an email using this email address down here and let's start a conversation. You guys are of course welcome to email me if you would like to discuss any challenges that you are having with pre-authorizations. So let's move on to some common errors that can occur with pre-authorization and capturing or completing the pre-authorization. So in our imaginary hotel, we have 10 rooms, and let's say we sold each of these 10 rooms and we pre-authorized every guest that we checked in. This in effect will mean that we have 10 pre-authorizations in the cloud. The only way to make sure that you capture the correct pre-authorization is by making sure that the authorization code that you enter matches the code that was given at check-in when you made the original pre-authorization. A common mistake that could lead to a double transaction would be that during checkout, if you were to do a sale instead of a capture or a completion. By doing a sale, there is no code required whatsoever. You are simply taking the money from the guest's account directly to the hotel's account. So if your guest did do a pre-authorization at check-in, and let's say the code that was attached to it was 1010. So normally what we would do if we were to capture or complete the pre-authorization, at checkout we would enter the code 1010 and then we are instructing the cloud to give us that amount of money that is attached to that code. Now if we did a sale instead of capturing or completing the pre-authorization, we're not telling the cloud to do anything. So that pre-authorization with the code 1010 attached to it, it's just going to stay in the cloud until it expires. So the guest will no longer have access to the pre-authorized amount which is sitting in the cloud, plus we've already taken that payment from the guest using the sale function as well. So this is why sometimes guests will believe that they have been charged twice for their reservation. But don't worry, there is a simple way to correct this, and it's something called pre-authorization reversal. So in a pre-authorization reversal, you would enter the guest's card details on the payment system, and you would also add the code that you used at check-in. So this code would be 1010. Now because this is a pre-authorization reversal, what you are actually instructing the cloud to do is to give that money back to the guest. So now let's talk about the difference between pre-authorizations on credit cards and on debit cards. If a pre-authorization is made on a guest's credit card, it will show on their online statement as if it's a pending transaction. So let's go back to our guest who is POA. We are going to take a pre-authorization of £100 for their bed and breakfast, plus £50 on top of that to cover their extras or incidentals during their stay. So when we take a pre-authorization of £150, it will not show as a sale transaction on their credit card statement. It will actually show as a pending transaction. Now, if you can remember, this guest had a bill of £135, so when we complete or capture the £135, that pending transaction of £150, it will just disappear. If this same guest uses a debit card, and depending on the bank, it can actually show on the guest bank statement that the £150 pre-authorization is a sale transaction, that the money has been taken out of their account and has been moved into the hotel's bank account. This is not the case. Here, you would have to reassure your guest that it was only a pre-authorization that was taken from their card, and that even if they were to contact their bank, they would even confirm to them that it's a pre-authorization, so money that's just being held in the cloud, and that it is not a sale transaction. If they are still not convinced, then just show them the copy of the receipt of the pre-authorization and highlight where it says that it's a pre-authorization and not a sale. And now that you have learned about the cloud and the authorization codes and how it all works, you can even explain this to the guest and see if it will help them understand. Now, when it is time to check out and we need to do the completion or the capture on the guest's debit card, once again, it can show on the guest statement as two sale transactions, one for £150 and the second at £135. Once again, you would have to reassure your guest that the only payment you have taken is the £135 transaction, and that the £150 was only a pre-authorization. A good tip here that I've learned through experience is that when that £150 goes back into the guest's account, they will be expecting to see a line on their statement that says minus £150, like a refund. Again, this is not the case. That £150 pre-authorization would simply disappear. I tend to say to guests, after reassuring them that I've only taken one payment, that if they were to look back at their bank statement in a couple of days' time, they won't see two transactions, they'll only see the one. And that one transaction will be the one that I captured or completed, and the pre-authorization would have disappeared. I explained to the guest that if after a week, say, it does still show that there are two lines on their bank statement, one for the pre-authorization and one for the capture, to contact me directly at the hotel. In my hotel career, this has only ever happened once. So what I did is I made a pre-authorization reversal just as a precaution. Even though I didn't need to, I know that by doing a capture or completion, it would completely void the pre-authorization anyway because I used the same code, but I just did it just to be safe. And the next week, the guest got back to me and said that the pre-authorization had disappeared, so it seemed to have worked. If the guest had said to me that it's still there on their account and it hadn't worked, then I would inform the guest to contact their bank because we haven't taken a sale for that pre-authorization. We know that it's no longer in the cloud because we have sent it back to the guest via pre-authorization reversal, and actually is up to the bank to release the funds back to their account. So there you have it, pre-authorization and how it all works and how you can best communicate it to your guests if they really don't understand it. Most of the time you can explain to your guests that a pre-authorization works similar to a deposit and that any money that they haven't used will automatically go back to them. Guests are usually satisfied with this because eventually on their bank statement they would see that the hotel has only charged them what they were supposed to be charged for. However, you will be surprised at how many guests will still not understand how pre-authorization works. I mean, money, it is a big deal. Like, money is very important to all of us, and we want to know exactly what is happening to our money that is going in and out of our accounts. And now you have the knowledge of how pre-authorization works, and that you'll be able to share this with your guests so that they have some reassurance that we are not double charging them, and that we are only charging them for what they actually owe the hotel. Okay guys, so let's summarize. When a guest comes to check in, a pre-authorization is taken. Now all pre-authorizations come with an authorization code. Pre-authorizations don't belong to the guest or the hotel. It belongs to the cloud. When a guest checks out, we need to take the payment. Now this payment is called a completion or a capture. Now when we are going to complete or capture the pre-authorization, it will ask for an authorization code. Now this code is the permission for the money to leave the cloud and to go into the hotel's account. But take extra care that when you process a completion or a capture, that it is not a sale, as it will show as a double transaction. Credit cards are best for pre-authorization, but if a guest uses a debit card, be aware that it may show differently on their statement. I wouldn't say you need to explain this to a guest every time they use a debit card, but now you have the knowledge in case you get asked about it. Now guys, if you found this video useful, please drop me a like and subscribe to my channel to be notified of more videos that may be useful to you. I will please ask as well that you share this video with your colleagues who may also be able to learn from it if they don't understand how pre-authorization works fully. Comment down below on how you do your pre-authorization process and how it all works during the night and doing top-ups and everything. I would love to know, and perhaps I might even learn something new also. If you have any queries at all, please drop me an email using this email address here below, and let's start a conversation. Remember, it's perfectly okay to make mistakes. In fact, I encourage you to make mistakes as long as you learn from them. Until next time.